What's up, everybody? This is the official Week 3 write-up. Was not looking forward to doing this, especially this early in the season, but my team laid a giant egg this past weekend, and so as a result, I've been given the microphone to talk shit about all of you guys. Could be worse. So without further ado, I present the Week 3 write-up, courtesy of the Moon Men. Let's just get right into it. I don't have any fun audio or visuals this year, because that just takes too much time and effort, and ain't nobody got time for that shit. I'm gonna get started just by going through the matchups here, and I'll give you my 2 cents on a couple things. Number one, I'm gonna give you my 2 cents on which players on your team I think stink and suck and probably should be cut. Because there's a lot of guys out there that are rostered that probably shouldn't be, and they suck. The second thing I'll do is tell you why I think your team's going to lose. Because your teams all suck, including my own. So why don't we get started with the least exciting matchup of the weekend, the Trailers and the Comeback Kids. So I guess I'll start with Benoit's team. He's the reigning dumpster. He did us a solid by actually submitting a report on Sunday, so thanks for that, Benoit. I did watch it, by the way. I thought it was reasonably well done for being on vacation. I think this Benoit team, it's lacking some stuff. I think a lot of people have said it already. Troy's power ranks reflect this on a pretty consistent basis. He got good production from Burrow this week, which is a good thing. 20 points from Burrow this season, I feel like, is a good outing. And then you have Henry and Cook, and that's really, this team kind of relies on each of them to get 20 plus points to have a chance. Fortunately for Benoit, it looks like Cook is going to play this week. Who knows what shape he's going to be in, or if he's going to be wearing like a bionic arm, but he'll be playing. Now, I think that both of those two guys have pretty difficult matchups with the Colts and the Saints. I'm not expecting too much. And then you got his wideouts, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen, and his flexes, Carter and Jahan Dotson. Keenan Allen's been banged up. Deontay Johnson has Mitch Trubisky throwing him the ball. I'm just glad you benched Chase Claypool and MVS. That's progress. You got 3 defenses on your team. I guess I respect planning ahead for future weeks. I might have done it differently. I'll just leave it at that. This team is projected for 97, even with 20 points from Burrow, which is above his projection. So, yeah, I mean, even if I'm kind and say this team's going to hit their projection, that's a 97-point projection. So it's probably not going to win this game. Let's flip to the other side here. We got starting Carson Wentz. As a reluctant Commanders fan, I can tell you that's just not a good idea. I think Dallas is going to force a few turnovers this week, and the Commanders will lose by 2 scores. Eckler and Connor, I think both of those guys could be in for a decent outing. I'm not so sure about Connor's upside this year. He's really touchdown dependent last year. Seems like the Cardinals are not pounding him, especially inside the 10, as much as they did last year. But then you got Diggs. It's always reliable. And then I got just some question marks here down at the bottom, right? Tyler Lockett, okay, he's kind of been emerging a little bit after what initially seemed like just a lost season for him after the first week. And you guys know how I feel about the Seahawks offense. And then you got Tyler Conklin. You're starting the Jets tight end. I mean, I get that he's been in some fantasy articles and stuff, but you just don't want to be doing that. And then 2 Jags wide receivers. Now, look, I'm definitely biased because I have Christian Kirk, but why are you starting Marvin Jones and Zay Jones? 2 Jags Joneses. Just pick one and move on. Marvin Jones is currently rostered in 32% of leagues. Zay Jones is rostered in 35% of leagues. These aren't start percentages. Those are rostered percentages. You have the Steelers D going against the Jets, so that's, I guess, good. A lot of exposure to that Steelers-Jets game. Those are 2 offenses you don't want to be dealing with. Um, Sucks that Swift's out. It is what it is. And then you got a couple guys on your bench. I mean, I guess Jarvis Landry isn't necessarily a better plug for your flex because Jameis is out. Josh Palmer, I probably would put him in there instead of Marvin Jones personally. But what are you gonna do? I think you still win just because your opponent isn't gonna give you any stiff competition. But I said this last year and I ate my words because Rippy won the title, so props to him. But I just don't really. I don't see why Troy's so high on this team yet again this year. I don't think it's a top 5 team, and I don't think it's a playoff team, quite frankly. So that's that. So I think I got the Trailers in a 20-point win. All right, on to the next matchup: the Suns against the Crab Cakes. So I think what I'll say about the Miz squad this year, reasonably decent as far as Miz historical squads are concerned. He's got Chubb, he's got Mike Evans, he's got AJ Brown, he's got Kittle, Kareem Hunt. I think that Tom Brady's marital issues are having a significant impact on his fantasy output. Sad as that is, the guy's been around forever. He proved us all wrong, except for Josh last year when he just kept on producing at a top 5 QB rate. Thank God Josh didn't take my bet on that early in the season, or it would have ended up like the 2016 Olympic swim race bet that we placed because I had no chance of winning because Tom Brady played like he was 25 years old. Anyways, I digress. Tom Brady's probably not startable right now, but I get that you have to kind of play him, and maybe you get a shootout in Kansas City, or I should say in Tampa against Kansas City. Chubb's been great. Not a pass catching guy, but he's leading the NFL in yards. You can always potentially count on maybe a 10-point game from Singletary as far as his upside's concerned, but overall it's not really going to give you much. Evans and AJ Brown, elite top 2 wide receivers, maybe amongst the best in the entire league. And then Kittle, when's he going to get going? Come on, we're waiting on him. I think the Miz squad projected at 116. I think you fall a little short. I think you end up with like 106.9. It's a scientific number that I've chosen there. And then I think that the Josh squad, on the other hand, obviously, actually, this team has the best 2 wide receivers, Chase and Kupp. But it's really dependent on, I think the 2 biggest factors on this team that are keeping it afloat are the emergence of Cordero Patterson and James Robinson as basically bargain bin RB1s. They've both performed extremely well this year, and I don't know that they can sustain that pace, but maybe Josh doesn't need them to because he's got the 2 best wide receivers and Kelsey on his team. And I think that's, he'll tell you that's what he did on purpose. So props to you, Josh. I don't know what Rashad Penny's deal is, to be honest. I don't know if he's going to get you 10 points or 4 points. I just know he fucked me a couple years ago, and I can never draft him again, to your benefit. And I think Chris Olave is, probably a guy that could be a keeper type player down the line. I don't think that he's going to have a good game this week because Randy Dalton's their quarterback. So you got to be a little bit muted on him. And I think Matthew Stafford probably is around 15 points this week. So overall, I do think that Josh ends up taking this one. I think he wins 115 to 106.9. And I'll call it that. So the Crabs move to 3-1 on the year, while the Suns drop to 2-2. And then I guess I should say on the other side, the Rippy Benoit matchup, they'll both move to 2-2 as well. So through 2 matchups analyzed, I got 3 2-2 teams and the Crabs at 3-1. Moving forward, we have a few rivalry matchups. We have a Bigelow battle. I mean, this is a Bigelow battle of epic proportions. We got the Dumpster Daddies, a.k.a. the Boner Bros, a.k.a. the Cum Captains, facing off against the Scumbag Crayfish, a.k.a. Press Juice Callus, a.k.a. Dancing Buddha. Callus has an elite team. He'll flap his gums all week and tell you about it. I think the Boner Bros have maybe more of an elite team, and they'll not really flap their gums, they'll flap their ass cheeks in your mouth. And that is the key to them. So what you'll see is, if you look at their squad, Lamar Jackson is basically in a tier of his own as far as quarterbacks are concerned, averaging some ungodly number of points a game because he's effectively like the third best running back and the top quarterback all in one player. If he can keep that up, I don't really know, what could keep the dumpster daddies from winning it all. I don't think he scores 40 this week, but I could see him putting up 30. I like Javonte Williams. Looks like CMC's hurt, so they're going to have to take him out of their lineup. If he does play, though, Cardinals are pretty shitty against running backs, and just in general, they're pretty shitty. So I could see him still hitting his projection of 19 points, even despite being kind of rumored to be injured. Tyreek Hill obviously had a great game, so it's a little bit of benefit of seeing what happens there. DJ Shark, normally I'd say, and I picked him up last year. People forget that. Normally I'd say, what are you doing? But Amon-Ra's out this week, so who knows? Maybe he gets a touchdown. A little bit of upside there that normally wouldn't be there. Higbee, don't hate it, kind of like it. I think he gets fed by Stafford. And then Master Bateman, that stack has hit a couple times this year. Could hit again against Buffalo. And then you got your other Broncos boy, Melvin Gordon, practicing full today. I kind of like Melvin. Got him on my other fantasy team. I don't have Javonte on that team, but I have Melvin. Ball cuff status. I don't hate it. I don't hate starting him. And then you guys picked up the Giants D to cuck the Bears this week. So fuck the Bears. Chicago boys know Bears don't really have much going on offense. They kind of stink. I think the Giants defense is a good pickup there, and I would definitely start them over the Bills at Baltimore. That said, I think the Boner Bros have a decent outing. I think this team is very solidly built. I think that they have a good chance of making some noise come playoff time, and I think they advance in the first inaugural Commissioner's Cup as well, which is, again, the top 2 out of those 5 non-pussies who decided to enter by 12 p.m. on Tuesday, the waiver day, as everybody knows. Anyways, so yeah, I'd say that the dumpster daddies are going to hit like right around 120, and then we go over to the scumbag crayfish, Josh Allen at Baltimore. Josh Allen's a guy, no matter how bad of a game you think he's having, you look at the fantasy box score and he's got like 17 points at halftime, and you're just like, what the fuck's going on? I don't see why that won't happen again. Mixon pretty much hit his projection on the nose, despite being one of the least efficient rushers in the NFL this year. A lot of people don't know that. He's got one of the worst yards per carry averages in the NFL. I still like him, but scoring 15 points in that game last night is actually huge for Callis. Starting Breece Hall might be a little too early to start Breece Hall. I don't know. I think he's going to take over the reins eventually. I don't know if he's the guy yet. But you got some options, right? You got CEH against the Bucks. I probably wouldn't play him there. And Josh Jacobs against the Broncos. So Callis is playing the matchups, as he said. That's what he does. He's got Devontae Smith, Cooper, McLaurin, and Judy all starting at wide receiver. I walked through his draft of wide receivers earlier today in the group chat. He could have drafted potentially 6 top 24 wide receivers, and that's pretty insane, considering top 24 is the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 bucket in a 12-team league. For one team to draft a quarter of those is phenomenal. He still has Cooper, who's in the top 15 right now. He's got Smith, who's I think right at 21 or so, and then Scary Terry and Judy, neither of whom is in the top 24 right now, but could potentially get there. So I think that his wide receiver situation is pretty good. He's got basically going to have pretzels, I think, on a pretty consistent basis with who to start, especially if Michael Thomas, can get healthy again, and he's going to want to plug him in there. One of these guys has to sit. 49ers D against the Rams. Not loving that. You're a matchup guy. I don't know if I would play that matchup, but who knows. And then Nick Folk. So I think Crayfish have a solid squad. I'm going to give this Bigelow battle to the three-headed monster, 120 to 118. And I think the key to all this is that these guys are going to watch Monday Night Football crushing dominoes and eating edibles on a Zoom call together. And it's going to be fantastic. And if that happens, I'd love to be invited. So good luck this weekend, both your squads. And that's going to bring the records there to 3-1 for the Crayfish, their first loss of the season, and the Bone Bros to 2-2. So another 2-2 team. All right, let's move on. We have the Battle of Haverhill, the Buckets and the Sacks. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to spend that much time on this because I've made very clear how I feel about both these teams. I think Mike's team is in a different tier. I think that they probably end up going like 12-2 this year, and then pull a Josh, and they'll fuck up in one of the rounds of the playoffs, but they don't have any business not winning the championship this year. So their projection is at 131. That's much higher than anybody else. Let's just say they hit 125. Fall short of their projection. On the other side, we have the Sacks starting Cousins. Crazy. Zeke. I mean, I'm a big Tony Pollard guy. Just traded him, but I think Tony Pollard is the guy there. Dobbins. Who knows what's going on in Baltimore with their backfield. Debo. I'm an original Debo boy myself. I think Debo scores 20 this week against the Rams. CD finally showed some signs of life last week. Darren Waller, probably the original Darren Waller guy. Don't quote me on that, but fuck off Rivas. And then Dameon Pierce, he started to look decent. Dortch is looking decent. Sacks kind of gave us a little something to think about last week. I think they could break 100 this week, but I still think they lose by 20 points. So I think it's a 125 to 105 final in this one. Saquon Barkley is still the biggest regret of my draft, but this isn't about me. And I think that's that. So I'm just going to move ahead. So Mike's going to move to 4-0, sole position of first place. And Bardelli will move to 0-4, despite 2 inspiring weeks in a row, breaking the triple-digit mark. All right. As we just completed the Battle of Haverhill, now we're going to move ahead to the Battle of Chicago. 2 Chicago boys. They're going to watch this game at Jake Melnick's, drinking out of their world-famous super small beer mugs. And then they're going to go to Al's Beef and feed each other Al's Beef. And then they're going to get on the L and go to Soldier Field and grill brats in the parking lot. I think I got all that, right? That's what you guys do every weekend. So we have Bing Bussin, for real, no cap, on God. He's got Herbert. I like Herbert. He's got Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones. He's got other Herbert. I tried to get him. The trade that we made this week was literally the byproduct of me trying to get Khalil Herbert from Rivas. And the end result was I didn't get Khalil Herbert from Rivas, and we swapped 2 other running backs each. Anyways, I think Khalil Herbert's in for a day, although I think that storyline is a little bit overblown. I think he gets 20 touches this week, but I think the Giants, they're going to key on the run because that's all the Bears do. So I think that he doesn't go like too much higher than his projection. I'll say he scores 13 points. Drake London and Mike Williams, these 2 guys are also 2 callous draft pedigree guys. I think the Breece Hall and Mike Thomas for Drake London and Mike Williams trade is looking more and more like a Bing Bussin win each day. I think that both those guys, potentially could score 15 points this week. And then moving down the list, Njoku. I think Bingo's been a big Njoku guy since he was a Brown. I don't think he's anything special, so he's athletic. That's it. And then we got Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. So not a big fan of Garrett Wilson right now. I think he's just on a shitty team. But Adams is Adams. I think he'll get his. Bears D against the Giants, probably a safe bet for at least 8 points. And then new kicker, Jake Elliott. Bingo's had the kicker stench, as everybody knows. I think this is a nice little pickup. I think Jake Elliott scores double digits this week. against the Jags. So nice pickup there. And then his bench. He's got a bunch of guys that maybe they swap in, maybe they don't. Maybe Tony Pollard ends up in the starting lineup before the end of the weekend. Maybe Adam Thielen gets traded for who knows what. I think there could be some changes to this lineup before Sunday at 1 o'clock, but I really don't know because it's a beautiful fantasy mind that we're talking about here. I don't have one of those. I just don't understand it. Let's go to the other side. The second most beautiful fantasy mind in the league. Farewell Marty, aka Triz, aka the Troy Doctor, aka Dad of Two, aka Congrats on the Sex, twice. So we have Kyler Murray. Everyone knows I'm the biggest Kyler Murray supporter in league history, and therefore I think that he is going to exceed expectations this week. I think he gets a rushing touchdown, all jokes aside. Alvin Kamara, I feel like I'm reading my roster from last year. Yeah, he's not been very good this year, but maybe he'll get things going against the Vikings in honor of the Queen in London at Hotspur Stadium. Come on, you Spurs. Alvin Kamara, is he a Hotspurs fan? Nobody knows. Maybe he's an Arsenal fan. We got the big North London derby this weekend. Nobody's talking about that in our fantasy league. Maybe we should be. Anyways, I digress. Jamal Williams, I think he's got a hefty workload coming his way. Hopefully he can turn it into some points. I think Seattle stinks, so maybe he will. T. Higgins, obviously big game, 21 points. And then we have Curtis Samuel. You know, I guess he's been a little bit of a revelation. Mark Andrews, Lenny, Marquise Brown, Cardinals D. I like where this Troy team's headed. I think Troy wins this game in a high-scoring shootout, 127 to 119. And I think that this is a perfect game to start the spin against me next week for the Bing Bus, because Bingo will fall to 0-4 with the most points scored against him, and the Moon Men will be ready to host him next week. The Bing Bus will shoot into outer space and land on the moon, and then they will fuck me up, and they'll go on like a 9-game spin. Bing Bus will make the playoffs and lose in the first round. But I got Troy winning, moving to 2-2. Bing Bus winning with a respectable quality. Losing with a respectable quality L. 127-119, and moving to 0-4. Lastly, the Battle of New York City. I should say formerly New York City. Now that Brent has relocated back to closer to the geography in his name. We got the Moon Men and the North End Nihilists. We got to see Waddle go on Thursday, so spoiler alert, he missed his projection by 10 points. So prior to this, I think I was projected to lose by maybe 7. Now I'm projected to win by 8. So kind of a big swing, and we'll see what happens. But Russ, is he going to get cooking? I'm looking at Brent's lineup. Russ Wilson, is he going to get cooking? I'm not really sure. I could see the Raiders, only 0-3 team in the league, letting him score a couple touchdowns. So I could see him scoring, like, hitting his 20. Najee, I like Najee. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers stink and suck. But I'd be happy if Najee's getting some points this week, because I got him on my other fantasy team. So sure, I'll call him a 15-pointer. J.D. McKissick, this is a new ball cuff for me because I have Antonio Gibson now. Decent PPR guy. Otherwise has no business being rostered. But sure, I'll say he hits his 7 on like 4 dump-offs. Waddle missed. Justin Jefferson at New Orleans. I think Jefferson bounces back this week and scores 16. Kyle Pitts, DK Metcalf. Not even going to talk about that guy. I think Pitts can score 10. I think DK Metcalf will send me into a mental breakdown if I talk about him. St. Brown, he's going to have to get benched. Curious to see who he plugs there. Probably Noah Brown. Good for 6. Packers D against the Pats. Could see them feasting. Brian Hoyer. Yikes. On the other hand, might have to plug in Ramondre Stevenson. Try to do a little mental battle there. And then Gano. So I think Brent's team, I could see them hitting their projection, like right around 106 right now. It's probably where they're looking at. And then on my side of the equation, Mahomes at Tampa we'll see how that goes. Is the field going to be dry by then? Last time I saw any footage of what's going on down there in the Bay Area, in Tampa Bay area, it was basically like a swamp and everybody's underwater. So we got Sunday 8:20 p.m. kickoff. Hopefully conditions are decent enough, and Mahomes can sling. Miles Sanders. I'll be honest. I don't love starting Miles Sanders every week, but this is the hand that I've dealt myself. He's starting against the Jags. I don't think he hits his 11 projection. So I'll call it a 7.4. Antonio Gibson at Dallas, 12.3. Will he get some passing work? If he does, I think he can hit that number. If he does not, no chance. Pittman, 12.2. Cannot have the Colts looking like they did last week. If that happens, Pittman is going to fall off a cliff. If they're better and Pittman returns back to how he was in week 2, the Titans suck. I could see Pittman beating his projection of 12. Kirk, 11.9. Eagles have been pretty good against the pass this year. I don't think he's going to hit that number, but I just can't bench him because he's too hot right now. But he's ripe for a bust this week, I think. Christian Kirk busting this week, scoring under 8 points. You heard it here first. Zach Ertz, I think he scores a touchdown this week. We'll be happy about that. He'll score 11 points. Brandon Cooks, another bounce back candidate. I think the Chargers secondary is terrible. I think that Cooks has had quite a bit of target share in that offense. It's just not been materializing to the extent that it should. And then I have a decision to make, really, with my second flex between Stevenson and Dylan. Dylan, my flashy, newly acquired BC Eagle grad, coming over from the Bing Bus, facing the Patriots. Going to have some opportunities to score some touchdowns, and that's what I like about him. On the other hand, Ramondre, there's not much going on in that Patriots offense with Hoyer leading the charge, so Ramondre could be the guy, but he also could get vultured by Damian Harris. Dylan could also get vultured by Aaron Jones, and this is a pretzel. We'll see what happens. I picked up the Broncos D this week at the Raiders. I think the Raiders stink. And then Younghoe Koo, kicker number 1. Good for 35 points. What can I say? No, just kidding. All jokes aside, I think I beat Brent 110 to 105 this week in a sort of underwhelming win, but that gets me to 3 wins, and I'll be convincing myself for another week that we don't suck, even though we probably do. All right, that's going to do it for the matchup previews. Now, I mentioned to you guys, I'll go through everybody's lineup and tell you why you suck and which players on your team should definitely not be on a roster. So let's go back to the beginning here, starting with the comeback kids. All right. I don't need to tell you why you suck. You already know. You have 3 defenses, so I would say at least one of those shouldn't be on the team. Dontrell Hilliard should not be rostered. And let's see here. I probably wouldn't roster MVS, but that's just me. He could sit on the heap. Evan Engram, obviously. I'll call it 3. Double flex league, you could see MVS getting on a roster, deeper benches. But I'm going to say at least 3 of these teams, 3 of these players should not be rostered. 3 players for Shaps. Moving along to the Oregon Trailers. Let's take a look. I will say, I got to give some props to Rippy. He was definitely leading the pack in non-rosterable players, and then he spent some money on the waiver wire to get rid of a couple guys like Kenny Golladay, for instance. So good job there. You preempted this. That said, there are a couple guys here who I would still highly recommend cutting immediately for anything else. Namely, Tyler Conklin, get the fuck out of here. Marvin Jones, out of my lineup. Zay Jones, not sold that he's worth anything yet. He's had 1 decent game. That's 3. And then looking down at the bench, we have Josh Palmer. I get it, potentially some decent upside there. I'll let that one slide because the Chargers have a decent offense. Nico Collins, gotta go. So you have at least 4, maybe some more if you want to be a little bit more of a heckler, a little stickler, I should say. If you want to be more of a stickler, you could even argue Carson Wentz shouldn't be rostered. I'll leave it at 4. as kind of a props to Rippy for cutting some guys this week, because there was probably 7 on this roster when I looked at it on Tuesday that I was like, they got to go. All right, moving forward, we have the Crab Cakes. Looking at Josh's team. Okay. Yep. Vikings defense, gotta go. And Michael Gallup, gotta go. Not a guy you need to be rostering right now. To be honest, I just don't think that he's going to come back from the injury that he had and be effective. At least not this year, maybe next year. Um, I want to say Robert Woods can probably get cut too, but he'll get picked up by someone else. So maybe you should roster him. Um, there's definitely 2 here. I'll call it 2. Leave it at 2. After another week or so, I guarantee that this list grows to 3 on this team. There's going to be at least one other team here, one other player on this team that is just not worth rostering, because there's some question marks here, to say the least. All right, next on the list, the Suns. The Suns have historically been amongst the league leaders in non-rosterable players, largely due to the fact that they're one of the least active teams historically on the waiver wire. But this year they're actually in better shape. I think that there's a lot of guys here that I think are worth rostering. I would probably recommend getting rid of Matt Ryan, and I would probably say that James Cook is kind of a borderline type. Like, he could definitely be on this list in a week or two. But for now, given how deep, we have to have that extra flex spot, I could say, keep him for now. He's a rookie, still kind of unproven. Everybody else, though, I think you can make a case. I see Suckup's roster percentage is 45%, but kickers are kickers. I think we should get rid of them next year. Even though I've historically been a pro kicker voter, I think I'm over kickers. So I'm gonna go with only 1 on this Miz team, actually. Now, there's a lot of guys here that you're like not gonna feel great about starting them ever, but they probably should be rostered because they're a good plug and play guy. But yeah, only 1 for Miz. Probably 2 after a week. All right, next one, the Crayfish. We have, let's see, 1. Tyler Algier, you could probably cut him. And Isaiah McKenzie. I know you filleted yourself for picking him up. You don't need to pick him up. You can drop him right now. That's 2. All right, Crayfish at 2. And the Dumpster Daddies, a.k.a. the Bone Zone, a.k.a. Foley's Big Nut. DJ Shark, not rosterable. This week I get he's a plug-and-play type of deal. Let's see. Giants D, normally not rosterable. Again, situational, so I guess I'll let both of those slide. I probably wouldn't keep Hubbard, to be honest. I get that he's like insurance for CMC, but to be totally, like, if I had to guess what they're going to do in Carolina without CMC, they're just going to have to figure out a way to get more of their pass catchers involved, because Chuba Hubbard is not good. So I would say definitely Hubbard and probably Burkhead can both be cut. And then again, Giants D and Shark should be cut after their situational plugs are done this week. So you're at 2 right this second. In about 72 hours, you'll be at 4. All right, moving ahead, let's go to the sacks. Kirk Cousins. Very tough to say. Probably would say not to roster him. Dortch is a guy who's like a good high volatility flex guy for right this second until Hopkins comes back, and then he's got to go. So I would say Dortch is like creeping towards complete irrelevance. Devontae Parker, you can can him. Julio Jones, you could probably get rid of too, to be honest. I don't know. He's only on people's rosters because his name. So yeah, you got at least 2. Probably should have 3 on that list. And then if you count Cousins, that's 4. But I won't count Cousins. So let's call it 2 for right now. In a week or so, Dortch will be irrelevant, and that'll be 3. And then at some point, Kirk Cousins, you'll just cut him. There's no way Kirk Cousins finishes the year on the sacks. All right, onto the buckets. Let's see how this goes. Okay, I'm cutting Jalen Warren, and that's it. All right, you got one. Congrats. Definitely get rid of Jalen Warren. You don't even have Najee Harris. What are you doing? Farewell, Marty. This guy always is good for at least like 3 or 4. He's the trash man. Cardinals D, get out. Situational. I get it. They're playing the Panthers. That's a beautiful mind move right there. Probably getting rid of Pickens. Probably getting rid of McKinnon. Probably getting rid of Rashad White and Pacheco. Probably getting rid of Gage as well. So basically, you have 5 out of 6 of your bench shouldn't be rostered. So 5. Plus the Cardinals once they finish their game on Sunday. 6. Not surprised. I was expecting random guys in that mix coming out of the Troy squad. All right, the Bing Bus. We got Bears D. I get it. Situational. Can't fault a guy. We got Samaje Perine. Just get him off. It's not worth a roster spot. And then I'd probably say Gerald Everett, borderline. So you basically have Perine for sure, and then you got Everett and Bears, borderline. You're definitely a 1, possibly to a 3 as of Monday. So keep those guys on your radar. The Nihilists. What do we got going here? We got McKissick. I guess he's like a PPR guy. There's worse guys rostered in this league, but I probably wouldn't roster him. And then the bench. Gainwell, Ingram, Eno Benjamin, Matt Breida, Noah Brown, Brian Robinson. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'd say 5 of those guys probably don't need to be rostered. And McKissick is borderline. I'm going to call it 6. Just to talk some shit because you're my opponent this week. And then the Moonmen. That's the lead, by the way. 6 is the highest. The Moonmen. Here we go. Broncos D probably doesn't need to be rostered. Again, situational defensive play. So, what are you going to do? Logan Thomas can probably go, if we're being honest. Darnell Mooney's getting close to that point. Keeping an eye on that. And then Darrell Henderson also on the watch list. So definitely 1, Logan Thomas. Broncos D probably needs to hit the waiver wire soon unless they have a huge game on Sunday. So I'm at 1, potentially up to 3 by next week. And maybe 4 if Henderson becomes completely irrelevant within a couple weeks. But definitely 1 for now. So I'm going to call it 1+. And that's it. Thanks for watching. See you fuckers never.